No one in the courtroom expected what happened next. They knew the defendant at least. They thought they did. Her reputation walked into the chamber before she did. The polished, diamond-ringed wife of a millionaire real estate mogul. But the moment she stepped inside, arms folded, chin lifted, eyes burning with defiance, Judge Frank Caprio felt something under the surface. Something tight. Something concealed. Something dangerous. And when she whispered, "You can't prove anything," the entire courtroom stiffened. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Judge Caprio had already watched the restaurant CCTV footage 3 times that morning, and what he saw in those grainy, silent clips would unravel everything she thought she could hide. It was a rainy Thursday morning in Providence, the kind of morning when the courthouse floors carried long streaks of water from hurried umbrellas, and the air smelled faintly of wet concrete. The defendant, Evelyn Marquez, entered with the kind of confidence that didn't belong in a courtroom, yet fit her like tailored silk. Her charge: a hit and run outside La Serrata Bistro. Minor vehicle damage, the police report said. Property damage? Nothing dramatic. But there was something off, terribly off. Witness statements conflicted. The restaurant owner insisted Evelyn stormed out after an argument. A server claimed she was crying before she even finished her meal. A valet said her hands were shaking as she backed out the car. And Evelyn's husband, wealthy, absent, unreachable, was nowhere in sight. The mood in the courtroom felt like a violin string pulled too tight. Everyone sensed this was not just a parking violation. It was the shadow of something else entirely. Judge Caprio lowered his glasses and looked at the woman standing in front of him. He had seen defendants break down, open up, lash out, freeze, confess, but there was something in her posture, a rigidity that didn't match the crime. A storm before the thunder. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, the soft creak of the wood familiar, grounding. His voice, as always, carried warmth even when wrapped in authority. "Good morning, Mrs. Marquez," he said gently. She responded without looking at him directly. "Morning." Her tone was clipped, sharp like she was swatting away an inconvenience. Judge Caprio studied her carefully. 35 years of the bench had taught him one thing. Everyone walks into this courtroom with a story. Some wear it openly. Some keep it buried so deeply it only surfaces through mistakes. He folded his hands. "Before we begin," he said, "I want you to know that this courtroom is a place for truth, not intimidation. We are here to understand what happened and why." She blinked, but her expression did not soften. Inside, Judge Caprio felt the weight of this case heavier than expected. He had seen wealthy defendants try to charm or bulldoze their way through the system. But this woman wasn't charming. She wasn't arrogant. She was hiding. And he knew that the search for truth today would require more care than most. Evelyn Marquez did not look like someone who had struggled a day in her life. Her blazer was expensive, her hair professionally done, her jewelry subtle but unmistakably costly. But when Judge Caprio asked, "Are you here alone today?" she hesitated not for a second, but for half a breath too long. "Yes," she answered. "My husband is traveling." It wasn't the words. It was the pause, the tiny crack in an otherwise armored exterior. Judge Caprio felt it. "What happened at the restaurant that night?" he asked. Softly. Evelyn shifted her weight. The confidence she walked in with wavered. Just slightly. "I was having dinner," she said. "It was a normal night. I went to leave, and the valet must have positioned my car too close to the railing. I hit it by accident. That's it." Her voice was even, but her eyes darted once, just once toward the floor. In most cases, that explanation would have been enough to begin the evidence review. But not today. Not with the way the server's written statement trembled in Judge Caprio's folder. Not with the restaurant owner describing her as distraught. Distraught in a way I've never seen a guest before. And not with the CCTV footage he had silently queued to access if necessary. There was more. Something Evelyn had not yet allowed herself to say. The courtroom's ambient noise, the scribbling of pens, the silent shifting of bodies felt distant as Evelyn retreated briefly into her own mind. She was not always the wife of a wealthy man. She grew up in a cramped apartment, over a laundromat in Pawtucket. Father gone, mother exhausted. Bills stacked like leaning towers. Her childhood was a constant negotiation between survival and hope. She met Victor Marquez, now a powerful land developer, when she was 22, working as a receptionist in a real estate office. He swept into her life like a promise she didn't know she was vulnerable enough to believe. Security, elegance, protection, a future without fear. But Eleanor's voice in the present day carried none of that hope. It carried fracture. "We all make mistakes," she muttered quietly, almost to herself. "But some people only see what they want to see." It was the first sentence she spoke that did not match her initial defiance, and it was enough to let Judge Caprio know he had reached the edge of something much deeper. Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Marquez, did you speak with the restaurant staff before leaving?" Her jaw tightened, a small detail, but visible. "No. I was in a hurry." "A hurry caused by what?" "I already told you. It was just a long day." He paused. The courtroom listened so closely the silence felt like pressure. "Mrs. Marquez," he said gently, "I want to remind you, this is not an interrogation. You are not on trial for your life. You are here because something happened, something minor on paper, but clearly not minor to you." Her eyes glistened for a moment, quickly controlled, quickly hidden. "It's nothing," she said. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. "I believe," he said, "that when people say something is nothing, they often mean it is something they haven't found the courage to explain." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Evelyn's shoulders stiffened. Then she delivered the line that would shape everything that followed. With a steady voice, she said, "Judge, you can't prove anything." She meant it as a shield. But in the chamber's stillness, it sounded like a confession of fear rather than guilt. Judge Caprio exhaled softly. "Mrs. Marquez," he said, "I'm not here to prove anything against you. I'm here to understand the truth." But then he added, quietly, "And we'll start with the restaurant, CCTV." Evelyn froze. Her breath caught. It was small, but enough for Judge Caprio to notice. The courtroom felt the shift. Something powerful, grief, fear, anger, passed through her body like a shadow. And Judge Caprio knew. This case was not about a car hitting a railing. It was about the moment before the car moved, and what shattered inside her just moments prior. The courtroom shifted as Judge Caprio reached for the remote. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the old wooden benches seemed to tighten in anticipation. Evelyn's fingers curled against her blazer sleeve, her knuckles whitening under the fabric. Judge Caprio didn't press play yet. Instead, he looked at her with soft, searching eyes. "Mrs. Marquez," he said quietly, "before we watch this, is there anything you want to tell me?" Evelyn swallowed hard. Her throat moved once slow, reluctant. "No," she whispered. But her voice cracked on the single syllable. Judge Caprio nodded with understanding, not judgment. Then he pressed the button. The TV on the side of the courtroom flickered to life, the black screen shifting into grainy grayscale footage. La Serrata Bistro's exterior camera. A rainy evening, the sidewalk slick and reflective. There she was, Evelyn, stepping out of the restaurant door. But she didn't look like the woman standing in the courtroom. In the footage, she stumbled. She wiped her face. She pressed both palms against her forehead like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. Then Victor Marquez followed her out. A collective gasp spread through the room. Evelyn shut her eyes. He grabbed her arm hard enough that her body jerked sideways. The courtroom froze in disbelief. Judge Caprio paused the video immediately. A heavy silence settled, darker, denser than the rain outside. "Mrs. Marquez," he said softly, "is that your husband?" Her lips trembled. A long moment passed before she nodded. "Yes," she said, voice barely audible. The courtroom took in the scene, her husband's grip, the aggressive pull, the attempt to drag her back toward the restaurant entrance. "Why?" Judge Caprio asked gently. "Did you not mention this?" Evelyn blinked rapidly, fighting the tears rising behind her eyes. "Because," she whispered, "I knew no one would believe me." Her shoulders collapsed slightly, the first visible crack in her steel facade. "And because he told me not to say anything," she added. The words dropped like stones into the silent chamber. Judge Caprio sighed a long, empathetic exhale. "Mrs. Marquez," he said, "in this courtroom, the truth has a home. You do not have to be afraid of being believed." Her chest shuddered, but she still did not allow herself to cry. Not yet. Judge Caprio resumed the footage. In the video, Victor pointed at her, his gestures sharp and angry. She tried to step back. He stepped closer. Then frame by frame they saw him shove her shoulder. Her body rocked from the force. The courtroom gasped again. Someone whispered, "My God," under their breath. But Evelyn refused to look at the screen. Her eyes stayed on the floor, as if the truth was too heavy to face. Judge Caprio paused again. "Mrs. Marquez," he said gently, "please look at me." It took a few seconds, but she finally lifted her gaze. Her eyes were glossy, rimmed with red. "Has your husband ever treated you like this before?" Evelyn's breath hitched. Her voice broke. He doesn't like when I question him," she said. "Or when I say no. Or when I try to leave early. Or when dinner isn't warm enough. Or when I don't answer the phone fast enough." The words spilled faster, like a dam cracking. "Or when I breathe wrong," she added in a whisper. The courtroom collectively inhaled. Judge Caprio closed the folder in front of him and folded his hands. "Mrs. Marquez," he said in a low, calm voice, "are you telling this court that you are being abused?" Evelyn froze. The word "abused" echoed around her, vibrating against years of silence. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She nodded. Once, small, fragile, but real, and that was enough. A murmur swept through the room. Some looked horrified, some angry, some heartbroken. Judge Caprio's voice carried a soft gravity. "You have nothing to fear in this courtroom," he said. "Not anymore." Evelyn covered her mouth with her hand. For the first time, a tear escaped down her cheek. Judge Caprio leaned forward, elbows resting gently on the bench. "Mrs. Marquez, can you walk us through what happened inside the restaurant before you exited?" Evelyn took a shaky breath. "I didn't want to go that night," she said. "Victor made me. He said it would embarrass him if I stayed home." Her voice dipped lower. "He told me I was ruining his reputation, that his partners were watching." Several people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. "We were supposed to celebrate a new development deal," she continued. "But when a waitress accidentally spilled water on my dress, Victor..." She stopped. Her mouth tightened. Judge Caprio spoke softly. "Take your time." She nodded, wiped her cheek. "He grabbed my wrist under the table," she whispered. "Hard. He smiled the whole time while he told me I was humiliating him, that I was making a scene." Judge Caprio's eyes dimmed with sorrow. Not shock, this was a pain he had heard before, but each story carried its own weight. "And so you went outside," he said. "I needed air," she replied. "I needed space. I wanted to call my sister, but he followed me." Her voice fell into a trembling whisper. "He told me that if I ever embarrassed him again, he'd make sure I'd regret it. I told him I wanted to go home alone. That made him furious." The courtroom grew still. "When he shoved me," she continued, "I felt something in me snap. Not my bones, my heart. The part that believed he would change." Her words shook with quiet devastation. "So, I ran to the car," she said. "I didn't even look where I was reversing. I just needed to get away from him." Judge Caprio nodded with deep understanding. "What happened was not the result of negligence," he said softly. "It was the result of fear." Another tear slid down Evelyn's cheek. "But fear," Judge Caprio continued gently, "does not make you guilty. It makes you human." Her chin trembled. "And humans deserve protection." Judge Caprio sat back, taking a moment to absorb everything Evelyn had carried silently into the courtroom. He thought of the thousands of people who had stood where she stood, each with a private battle beneath the charges written on paper. He thought of the law rigid, structured, unwavering. And then he thought of justice living, breathing, shaped by compassion. Inside his mind, he reflected. How many people walk into a courtroom carrying wounds no paperwork shows? How many mistakes are not crimes, but symptoms of suffering? The law punishes actions, but justice understands the human behind them. He sighed softly. Evelyn wasn't a criminal. She was a woman trying to survive in a gilded cage. He looked at her again, this time not as a defendant, but as a person standing on the edge of a crumbling world. He knew what he had to do next. He turned to the bailiff. "Please bring me the interior dining room footage." A ripple of tension moved through the room. Evelyn's breath caught. Judge Caprio's voice softened. "Mrs. Marquez, I need to see everything, not to accuse you, but to protect you." Her shoulders weakened, as though she'd been holding the weight of her world for years. And now, finally, someone was helping her carry it. The lights dimmed slightly as the second video began to play. This time, the screen showed the interior of La Serrata Bistro. Warm lighting, clinking glasses, soft music, couples leaning close in quiet conversation. And there, at the corner table, sat Evelyn and Victor. Victor looked every bit the polished mogul he was known to be. Perfect posture, tailored suit, easy smile for the business partners seated nearby. But the camera captured what smiles hide. Under the table, his hand clamped around Evelyn's wrist. In one moment smooth, subtle, almost invisible, he leaned toward her, whispering something with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And Evelyn stiffened like someone had poured ice down her spine. Judge Caprio paused the footage. The courtroom felt heavier with each silent second. He turned to Evelyn. "What was he saying to you?" he asked gently. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "He told me I was embarrassing him," she said. "That my nervous fidgeting was childish. That his partners were watching. That I should sit still and smile." Her eyes flicked up to the screen, then quickly away. "He told me if I made him look weak, he'd make sure I'd regret it at home." Muffled gasps rippled across the room. Judge Caprio inhaled, controlled, steady, but his eyes darkened with sorrow. He pressed play again. Now the camera captured the waitress walking up to deliver drinks. A simple accident, her elbow nudged a glass. A few drops of water splashed onto Evelyn's dress. Victor's face changed so fast the camera almost missed it. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed. His hand shot out beneath the table, gripping Evelyn with a force that made her wince. And then, just for a moment, the camera caught her eyes filling with tears. Judge Caprio immediately paused again. He spoke gently. "You were afraid." Evelyn didn't respond, but she didn't need to. Her silence screamed the truth. The judge spoke to the courtroom, his voice carrying the weight of everything unsaid. "This is what fear looks like. It doesn't always bruise skin. Sometimes it bruises the spirit." He turned back to Evelyn. "You have been living in a quiet war," he said softly. She finally broke. Tears streamed freely down her face as she covered her mouth, trying desperately to stay composed. Every wall she had built for years, every facade, every practiced smile began crumbling. "He wasn't always like this," she cried. "The first year was beautiful. He made me feel safe. He made me believe I was finally escaping the chaos of my childhood." She wiped her tears, but they kept coming. And then the control started. Little by little. At first it was sweet. "Call me when you get home. Wear this instead. Don't talk to him. He's not good for you." Her breath shook as memories flooded through her. Then he started checking my phone, choosing my friends, choosing my clothes, telling me how to talk, how to walk, how to breathe. Her hands trembled visibly. And when I fought back, he didn't hit me. Not with his hands. He hit me with words, threats, shame, silence. Her voice cracked painfully. I learned it was easier to obey. The courtroom, usually filled with chatter and shifting, was stone still. Even the air felt reverent, honoring the bravery in her unraveling. "I never told anyone," she whispered. "Not my sister, not my mother. I thought I could handle it. I thought it was temporary." She looked up with eyes full of exhausted truth. "But the night at the restaurant, I realized he would never stop." Judge Caprio let her speak until her voice ran out, until grief finished leaving her chest. Then he nodded gently. "You are safe now," he said. "And you are not alone." Inside, Judge Caprio's heart ached. How many people sit in this courtroom carrying a lifetime of pain behind a single moment of mistake? How many times has the world seen only the symptom and not the suffering that caused it? He reflected quietly. There is the law, and then there is justice. Law is structure. Justice is humanity, and humanity has to come first. He thought of his father's old wisdom, the kind spoken at kitchen tables and passed through generations. When someone is drowning, you don't ask why they fell in, you pull them out. And sitting before him was a woman whose spirit had been treading water for years. Today, she had finally surfaced. He straightened slightly, preparing to make one of his most important rulings. "Mrs. Marquez," he said, "the charge against you is property damage from reversing into a railing." She nodded, wiping her face. "Yes, Judge. But the context," he continued, "tells a different story." He opened his hands slightly, a gesture of understanding. "You were not fleeing responsibility. You were fleeing fear." Evelyn nodded, tears still falling softly. Judge Caprio turned to the courtroom. "This case is no longer about a dented railing. It is about a woman who needed help and had nowhere to turn." He returned his gaze to Evelyn. "You said earlier, you can't prove anything. But the truth is, you don't need me to prove anything." He leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. "You only needed someone to listen." Evelyn broke again, this time silently, shoulders shaking. He continued, "I believe you. I see you. And I will not allow fear to define your future." Judge Caprio closed the case file. "This court hereby dismisses the charge of property damage." A soft gasp spread across the room. He raised a hand to emphasize the heart of his ruling. "This dismissal is not because you are wealthy, or connected, or privileged." He shook his head. "It is because you were escaping danger. And escaping danger is not a crime. It is survival." Evelyn's breath caught, her hand pressed to her chest as though holding her heart together. Judge Caprio continued, "I am also ordering court-provided assistance to ensure your safety. Domestic violence counseling, support resources, and protection should you request it." Her tears slid down faster. "Thank you," she whispered, voice shaking. Judge Caprio's voice softened to a near whisper. "I believe that every human being deserves to feel safe, especially in their own home." As Evelyn stepped back from the stand, her face was still wet with tears, but her posture was different. The stiffness was gone. The armor was gone. For the first time in years, she looked lighter. Judge Caprio watched her go, reflecting silently. Sometimes, justice is not about punishment. Sometimes it is about giving someone permission to breathe again. He tapped his gavel gently, not as an ending, but as a blessing. "This matter is adjourned." The courtroom remained still for a moment, absorbing the weight of what they had witnessed. Not a scandal, not a wealthy woman dodging accountability, not a dramatic outburst, but a human being finally being seen. A narrator's voice would have said it best. Behind every case is a story. Behind every mistake is a truth. And behind every person is a battle we know nothing about. And as Evelyn walked out of the courtroom, no makeup left, no armor, no husband at her side. She did not look like a real estate mogul's wife. She looked like someone who finally had a chance to start over. And sometimes, that is the truest form of justice.